All right, welcome to today's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is, if you look behind me right now, we have a studio. Look at that. It's almost huge. It's not quite there. But look, it looks fancy. It's a place to host people. And this episode was the first episode we hosted in the studio. It wasn't actually quite done when we had it. But the bad news is this. Because it was the first episode, we were bound to make some mistakes. I'm a gardener, not a videographer. And anyways, I made some mistakes. Long story short, audio is fantastic on this podcast. Nothing wrong with it. But the video was out of sync. I couldn't fix it. Anyways, if you're watching this, you're going to have a nice, pretty picture of me and Wally sitting on a chair for an hour and 50 minutes. If you get bored of that picture, I would suggest turning it off because it's not going to change. But if you're listening to this, it won't affect you at all. Now, this podcast, to get into what it's actually about, not the technical deficiencies that I have, the podcast is with Wally Pearce. He is a turf expert. He consults at all sorts of amazing places, stadiums, golf courses, all that sort of stuff. It's very technical, very nerdy. Some of you guys are going to absolutely love it. I loved it. If you love technical side of lawn maintenance, this is right up there. All about fertilizers, all about all that sort of stuff. And so, look, let's get into it. I hope this is a great podcast for you guys. Let's get started. So, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. As you can see, we are in what we could almost describe as the studio. I've been working on making something, right? So, here we go. This is as there is as much done in here as minimally possible to run a podcast. So if you look anywhere on that side of the of the camera, it looks like it's, you know,
it's a true film set.
It's out of like a zombie movie or something like that. Like it's, I mean, if you guys don't know, we actually had a little flood here as well. So it was about 30 centimeters of water in here. Anyway, so my house is a mess. But look, you know how it is. You just pretend that everything's
It's kind of like
good.
having a mullet. It's like it's business out front, party out back. Is the setup.
Well, I guess this is almost like, I mean, this is business, but it should also be some sort of party, right?
Yeah.
You got some,
bit
nothing
of
alcoholic, but, you know,
yeah.
Nice drink here and there. I wanted to start with this, right? So what you can't see on camera is I've got a piece of very cheap timber cable tied to a milk crate with 2 bags of potting mix on it to hold these microphones up.
Industry appropriate.
100%. I mean, they're probably doing this on like all the Netflix shows, you know, the multi-million Marvel movies. That's how they hold their microphones. So,
strange things happen.
I wonder if this is going to snap halfway through. The cable ties are gonna give up on
classics. If they don't snap, probably a cable tie sponsorship coming your way, mate.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, big cable tie industries, you know, they're making billions, so I'll be rolling it.
Ain't nothing a cable tie can't fix.
Exactly. Get your cable ties from WW9. So the reason why I want to start with this, because this wasn't intentionally made for this. This is I was using this for artificial light on my little putting green.
Wow.
And this question's been coming up a lot. So I should introduce you. We've got Wally from ICL.
G'day, mate. How you going? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming here. I mean, I'm glad that this is in person because I think this will be fun.
I like in person, mate. It's fun.
Yeah, online it can be the pause. It's like there's a bit of work from my end to like have a conversation and not be, what's the word?
I can imagine. Yeah,
like it's, you know, and you can feel sometimes you're cutting someone off and they're like, oh they're talking and
yeah.
It's probably every episode I probably cut out one of those 5 seconds of you go, I go, you. Anyways, I'm glad you're in here. I've got to fix up these cables. Anyways, next podcast we'll have this all sorted. So the what I was getting at here is I've got some clamp on LED lights up here which the people can't see, but here's the first thing I want to start with. ICL, you do a lot of turf stuff. You work at you help out working at a whole bunch of places.
Yeah.
Like what sort of, let's set the scene. What sort of people are you helping out in the industry? Because it's not just your average mum and pa that you're helping out get lawn green, right?
Locally here, we help out a lot of the, in this area, so in the WA area, we help out the likes of, they use Optus Stadium is our products. We're at Fremantle today. But to give you an idea internationally, so if you follow football, like you put the Premier League on, And you mentioned lighting, artificial lighting. Early last week, we had John Ledwidge, the head curator of Leicester City Football Club, do a seminar to a lot of stadium curators from Australia, but a lot of the Premier League grounds, so like the Man Cities, the Man Uniteds, Wimbledon are on a full ICL program. So anyone who's anyone in kind of sports turf, from a high level point of view in Europe, is probably either using a full ICL program or using some of our products. Yeah.
So very high end, right?
Yeah.
Quite technical. We really care about. So what I did, all right, at my lawn, and you've just seen my lawn.
Yep.
It's struggling with some fungal disease and stuff because of the flood and everything.
Yeah.
But I've cut a about 7.5 mil, my little Kaiku green, which is 3-4 meters by 4 meters.
Yep.
It's this tiny little circle, and I was using the artificial light to try and generate a little bit of extra growth. It seemed like it worked. I'm just using LEDs.
Mm-hmm.
Is that me just finding what I think I wanted to see?
No,
or is it actually something that's possible to work?
It's interesting you say that, because in my prior role to this, I was a research manager, worked for a company called the Sports Turf Research Institute. And one of the trials, so basically they had a close relationship with FIFA. And
All right.
FIFA and SRI forecast that it was something in the tune of the next 90 world stadiums they needed to build for World Cup events were in warm season climates.
Right.
And so obviously Kaiku growing in shade, growing Bermuda or Cooch in shade, growing Zoysia in shade, growing grass, particularly warm season turf in the shade in a stadium environment is probably one of the hardest things you can do. And so we forecast that was imminent, going to happen. And so we were doing research trials on using lights on growing couch grass. And I had some research trials set up to look at the difference between currently in stadia, like if you hung around at a stadium in Australia, anywhere that has shade, they'll probably roll the lighting rig out, and more often than not, it's high pressure sodium lights. So these are 1,000 watt, really hot lights that.
It's usually a very yellow light.
Very yellow color light, and so that was the challenge: is yellow color. That was part of the trials. Was it the right color to grow Bermuda grass? And so we were looking at comparing that yellow wavelength of light and that amount of light energy, and looking at different percentages of LED and different wavelengths of light to grow couch in shade. And I'm talking like 80-90% shade.
Yeah.
And we managed to do it. And a lot of that information got fed internally for the likes of the Men's World Cup that was at Qatar.
Yeah.
And then, as that turned out, they just had so much money that they could cool the whole stadium and just
yeah.
grew pure ryegrass. But we started the process. We thought that we're starting to crack the recipe for growing warm season grass in shade.
So let's pause here, because I think there's a level of technical stuff going on. We might have lost a few people, right?
Yeah.
So when you've got Kaiku is probably the worst with shade.
Yeah,
right?
it probably requires what you consider the most light energy. So light energy gets measured in like molarity. So think of it like kilojoules or kilowatts of power.
So let's dumb this down for the average Joe.
Yeah.
The best way to talk about this from the average person is just direct hours of sunlight. Right?
Yeah, but it gets confusing because I don't want to confuse anyone, but your best sunlight ranges from about 11 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon.
Okay.
And purely that's a sun angle thing, because we have what's called a little machine called a photosynthetic active radiation meter. And so you can put that out and you can read a really high micromoles of light in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Leave it sitting there throughout the day, and as you get closer to the afternoon, you read a really low micromoles of light, and it's purely because the sun is not directly overhead.
Right.
And it's not the highest level of exposure. And so you can have 3 hours of sun a day on Kaiku, and if those 3 hours magically happen between 11 and 2,
right,
then you'll be able to grow really good Kaiku.
Right, interesting.
But you can have 3 hours that is between 2 and 5 in the afternoon.
Right, and it's not the same.
I.e. your lawn on that side, which is the eastern side of the house?
So that's west.
West.
That's east. That's north, south.
Oh, southern. So that's the worst orientation. Oh no, how does the sun go over here? I always get
So
confused.
the sun's on sort of that angle.
Okay.
So that long strip
Yep.
gets the morning sun,
Yep.
right? And it gets just enough sun in winter to survive because we're almost
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the shortest time of the year.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, and it's
Yeah.
you can see it's nice and green, it's
Yeah.
thick enough. But what I was getting at, right,
Yeah.
is when you're in the home lawn scenario, which is exactly what I've done,
Yeah.
you can raise your height of cut
Yeah.
to compensate for a lack of light. And so the way that I usually talk about with the clients is I'm like, well, the simple thing, really dumb it down. The plant is essentially a solar panel.
Yep.
It gets its energy from the sun. The more surface area, right, the more energy it can get, right? And so we just raise our height of cut, helps out enough, right? And I've found that when I've kept in that section, there was a couple of seasons ago where I tried to keep it lower and I was using all the fancy chemicals and things like that, like trying to get carbon in and compensate with that, and it just didn't work, especially with my dog.
Yep.
And so let's go back to the stadiums and put it in a home lawn sense, because what you're getting here is exactly the same thing on the house, where you've got for
Yep.
those who are listening, I'll try and describe it. You've got the lawn directly butted up against basically what you might call a patio, right, or
Yep.
pergola.
Yep.
And so that half of the lawn is just in shade pretty much,
Full time.
pretty much all time, except for the morning.
They normally say about 80%. So you might get 2 hours of useful sun.
Yeah, so something like that. But also it's not like,
It's not enough.
it needs some love and attention. It needs
Yeah.
some help, right? So what you would just do in a home lawn scenario is you can raise the height of cut, give it a bit more extra love and attention with some fertilizer, make sure
Yeah.
it's healthy.
It's a challenge.
But you can't really do that in a playing surface because you need to have the lawn low enough to have the ball roll consistently.
Yeah.
Have it be, I mean, maybe with rugby you could probably have it a bit more
Yeah.
longer, but
It's
not with cricket or...
it's interesting.
Yeah, what, Jess?
It was interesting hearing John speak last week, and then part of my role with STRI was...
So this is John from Leicester?
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Ledwidge, he's a head curator at Leicester City Football Club, now being relegated.
Yeah, I was about to say.
That question came up. Someone was like, what does it mean now you've been relegated? And apparently the day-to-day operations doesn't get affected. It's just things like that sponsor on the shirt is that now only worth like £10 million as opposed to however many £100 million.
Well, they say it's about... I'm really into Premier League and all
Yeah,
sorts
yeah.
of spots. And
Yeah.
they say it's like 100 and 150 million, the difference between being in the Premier League and being in the
Yeah.
Championship.
Yeah, it's massive.
So a year, right?
yeah,
A year.
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy.
Moving on, back to the shape. So it's interesting. I don't want to get too technical for the punters because I know how confusing delving into these kinds of spaces, but even the researchers can get confused. And I have researched this topic before and these are the kinds of things that people in my kinds of roles dealing with those kinds of problems think about all the time, because you have to be, because if you're not, you can never solve it.
Right.
It's interesting. Height of cut, and there's some research that shows this. Height of cut, in theory, can potentially reduce surface area of the leaf.
Okay.
Because if you looked at certain height of cuts, like if we went out and measured all the surface areas of the leaves that you're cutting, and so of your 18 mil or your slightly lower cut,
Yep.
and
Yeah,
measured
that's
all
18.
that in square meters, it's certainly more dense, and there's more probably leaf presented to the sun.
Yeah.
Whereas if
so
you've got a
basically
longer leaf-
the longer leaves are covering itself up.
Yeah,
what
you're
you're
almost
saying?
shadowing itself, and it's kind of less surface area from an exposure point of view.
Yeah.
And so there's probably this happy medium of height of cut of where you need to be at. So there's a lot of research. Like I know, for example, you'll talk to Jason later in the week or whatever, Hodgie.
Well, we'll blank that out because I'm not. I've given him.
Oh.
I've given him a chance.
Okay.
I'll just put a little bleep.
Yeah,
in there,
yeah. Well,
because I've given the person who I've got on Saturday. I'm really excited to have him on, but they're doing a lot in the weekend. And I said, look, you don't have to. We can do it later. You know, like
punters will probably be able to guess. So I know the likes of Tiff Tuff, when they
Yep.
bred that. One of the big things with breeding new couch grasses, Tahoma, Tiff Tuff, they're all coming out now. They're trying to look for multiple traits that cover everything. And so shade tolerance is a big ticket item, because you think home lawns, but also like golf fairways on the rough edges, growing in at large
Big
shade
trees,
lines,
yep.
stadiums. what they look at when they're researching turf is density over height. And so obviously the more dense you are at a higher height of cut, gives you insight that it's probably going to be more shade tolerant. It's like an early screening method.
Okay.
The big challenge is shade tolerance is often a function of growth rate. So the slower a grass is,
Yeah.
generally the more shade tolerant it is.
Right.
Because the day that you lay turf, or the day that you impose different light scenario onto turf, it takes about 4 weeks to respond. Whereas a slower growing grass takes much longer to respond. And what you'll find is they may have even shade tolerance physiologically, like i.e. a zoysia and a kikuyu or something. But it might just take 2 or 3 months longer to show that response to light because it senesces or grows much more slowly.
So is this basically what you're saying is, so for the average punter, what the question we're going to answer,
This is like a
this is the longest answer to the question we haven't even asked yet, but the question I'm trying to answer is, can the average punter put an LED light on their lawn to help it grow?
Yes.
So that's right.
But
cool.
they have to get the right
Right,
wavelength
LED
of
light. And the reason why
Yeah.
I know that LED works for these indoor stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And there's heaps of of stuff online because
Yeah.
so many people grow things indoors, LED lights indoors.
I can
indoor
give some
plants.
hints. You should have just asked me what wavelength of light and does it work. I would have said yes, and the
But
hint is...
I'm interested in this as well. So if we go
Yeah.
back to what you're saying, basically, it sounds like I'm trying to dumb it down
Yeah,
for my end of the industry,
Yeah.
right, which I'm included in.
yeah.
But
yeah.
what I'm trying to get at is, it sounds like when you've got a faster growing plant, it obviously is using more energy
Yeah.
to grow faster. The light is where the energy comes from, so it's
Yeah.
more light hungry.
Yeah,
Right, so when you have a zoysia or a buffalo, which are slower growing, right, they don't have to have as much light.
yeah.
So that's basically how
They're
it
not
is.
photosynthesizing as or not, that process doesn't happen as quickly, and hence the grass doesn't grow as quickly and then doesn't utilize light as quickly.
So let's go back. So why I was interested in this is that it's actually really common for this time of year, people will call up a business like us, or a lot of the people who are listening to this podcast, and they'll say, I've got this patch, it's really struggling, what do I do? And the average guy, this is me 5 years ago, I was like, well, in spring I fertilize it and it works, right? And you can chuck some fertilizer down, and what you usually get is a hell of a lot of weeds,
Yeah.
right? And there's just a limit to... Oh, is that the cable tie breaking?
Did it go?
I don't know. That's
2 hours later.
Should work. Should be right. That'll hear me, won't it? How close is it?
yeah, I can see the levels. It's fine. It's got
Yeah.
you. I'm gonna do some magic after.
I can't even remember where we were.
Uh,
Oh, you asked me to simplify how to deal with shade.
well, we were like, having a laugh before. Where I was just doing some screws and some of that. You were like, well, we just started the most technical subject. I will put an intro in this being like, guys.
Melt people's faces.
The last podcast we started talking about drinking stories for
Yeah.
about 15 minutes, and I was like, oh well, like this is real life. This is what people.
Yeah. Oh, we don't have to talk about technical subjects, but you got me, so we might as well.
Well, let's dumb it down, and then we'll move on
Yeah,
from
yeah.
light.
No.
Okay, so if people are struggling with light, can
Yeah.
they just go to Bunnings and help their client out by buying a couple of LEDs, chuck them on, or is that just you just can't do that?
That's pretty high end. I feel like your solution's probably easier, but also looking at probably not so much what you do when the problem exists, but what you do probably 3 months before the problem exists. So
Yes.
it's like building strength and health and density in the turf before it's going to go backwards. Because I deal with a heavy shade at home personally.
Yeah.
I deal with this exact issue. I know that no off-the-shelf product's going to solve it. I just feel like putting artificial grow lights out there, the extent that I need. If you've got a small enough space like that green, then maybe that is the solution. But if you've got 200 or 100 square meters of lawn, it's...
Yeah, well, I'm usually what it is like it's usually like just a small corner.
Yeah, well,
It's like the far corner, and because we had a client that we just recently installed a lawn in,
yeah,
and it was a bit of a. It was one of those ones where the client's always right sort of thing. Where nice people, like not like
Yeah.
they were jerks or anything, but we were having this conversation. And they were like, "We want you to install what was a garden bed. We just want to put the same lawn we have on the other side here. And I was like, you see in the corner there how it's not growing. It's not going to grow in this corner here either.
Yeah.
Because it's cooch, needs more light. And they're like, yeah, but we want it to be the same thing, and we don't like buffalo. It's like, okay. So I was just thinking, like, you're probably talking about a 1 by 1 or maybe 1.5 by 1.5.
They probably
triangle.
could do that, but it's a lot of effort.
It is a lot of effort.
Yeah. It's doable.
But it was just on the fence, and I was like, I wonder. Because these lights with the clamps and stuff like that, just clamp it on the edge of the fence.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not going to do it, but I think it's probably more interesting just as a concept because,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure somebody at some point will listen to this podcast and they'll go, I'm going to try that one day, and maybe it'll work, and it'll be worth it.
It's being done. It's being done in Stadia. They have even CO2 type chambers that produce more carbon dioxide, and they've got LED lights. And so what it becomes about is we know that supplying that additional light that the plant needs is needed, but then it becomes about what colour or wavelength of light do you need to deliver. Because you mentioned high pressure sodium, they're more yellow. You can see the LEDs above us are more white colour.
Well, they're fluoros.
Fluoro.
That's the one LED.
Oh, the LED, yep.
I can't use all LEDs here because of the flickering,
Yep.
and it picks up in the camera.
Yeah. So we looked at wavelengths of light, and what we started to find, and all you have to do is find out what the sun is in that hemisphere.
Yeah.
What kind of wavelength is the sun delivered in the hemisphere that you're in, and then what grows successfully in that hemisphere. And if you look at kind of even cool and warm season have different wavelengths of light requirements, and then within the species sit differently because they've got different sun requirements. So cooch, as an example, needs more red and near infrared light. More green light will induce seed head response. And so where the penny starts to drop is you go, well, certain times a year you see weird things happen on your lawn. You get more disease, you get more seed head. What's causing it? Everyone's like, oh, it's stress. And you're like, well, yeah, to a point. But also, what causes plants to go into seed in nature? Is it the climate, or is it the fact that Bill Bloggs isn't walking out and spraying fungicide on his native grassland? It's probably the climate. It's a seasonal thing. It's the daylight integral, and it's the colour of light at point in time that causes a response in the plant. And so you can actually induce a response like they do in hydroponics.
So this is so nerdy compared to the average, because you're talking...
Yeah.
Like, now, I'm interested in stuff, so I'm already quite aware of some of these things. Like, I'm aware that the Qatari people had air conditioning in their stadiums.
Yeah.
Because of the problem with the soil and the temperature.
Yeah.
Trying to cool down everything.
Yeah.
Ryegrass is the preferred playing surface for
FIFA.
So there's different things, and so I'm up to date on this. But most guys on this podcast are like, wow, this is so much nerdier.
That's probably a bit more too hectic.
Well, we've been talking about, like, I think for most people, let's bring this back with the average contractor, right?
Yep.
Or the person like I started off working in a school.
Yep.
Right, and the training that we got was really more about health and safety. Like, if we did a herbicide course, it was more on, like, how do you not get parents to freak out when you're spraying a herbicide on site or something like that, you know?
Yep.
You're not talking about things like LD50, or you're not talking, like, with herbicides. You're not You're not talking about things like, how's the best way to get the best bang for buck and things like that. So a lot of people, and then what you get online with people like Ben and Brenton, is everything they're doing is really good. But the difference between a contractor and a home lawn is that there's a layer between the decision maker and you.
Yep.
Right? And so when you're at your home lawn and Ben Sims goes, do A, B, and C, right? It's so hard to convince people who
not
are...
to do that.
Well, like if you go to, say you're my client.
Yeah.
You know nothing about turf.
Later.
And I go do a program that's based on, let's say, liquid fertilizer.
Yeah.
The results will be amazing compared to nothing, right?
Yeah.
But the number of applications.
Yeah.
How do you convince somebody to do that, right? You got to do vertimowing. Okay, that's really expensive. How do I, these are the challenges that a real contractor faces, where they're like, I've got a budget
Yeah.
My client's already paying $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a year just cutting the lawn. I want to take it to the next level,
Yeah.
right? And this is where you can use a professional product. So you'll talk about, we can get into, before we were recording, slow release products, right?
Yep.
The difference between that, knowing timings and things like that, because this is why I wanted to talk about, we started with the light, right? You can have a shaded area,
Yep.
charge a client $100 to fertilize their lawn, and you don't fix the shaded area because
Yeah.
you don't quite know those things.
It's just a waste of everyone's resources.
Right, and
know?
I've done that, right? And
Yep.
it was now the client didn't really care because it was green, but there was just a lot of weeds that grew, and I remember, this is years and years ago. I remember several moments. So back in the day, this might have been 2015, 2016, around then. What's that? 8 years ago. I was doing a retirement village, right?
Yep.
And I didn't really know about the problems with dormancy, right? So this couch lawn started to lose its colour, right? And this is what people like me in our position do. Oh, we'll put some fertiliser out, right?
Yeah.
I hear urea's pretty good, right? So like April, I just do a massive hit of urea. I'm like, this hasn't done what it usually does. So that's the level of conversation that,
Yeah.
right, talking about adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere and air conditioning to grow the ryegrass in the
Yeah.
stadiums, probably a little
Yeah,
bit.
and that's the level that they're at though. Like, but you know, like there's things that most average punters can do, and I do that myself at home. I don't do all the stuff that I see from day to day on these high level stadiums. Generally, like probably 85% of the customers, at like what they do is attainable to the average punter.
Right.
And so like,
You're talking about stadiums and all that jazz.
yeah,
Awesome.
like there's so many practices that I think if you get the basics right, half of the trips I did away to FIFA tournaments was just about training people on how to get the basics right.
Right.
They get them right, and it generally delivers a world-class surface.
So let's start
Yep.
with, how do you get a fertilisation program,
Yep.
right? Now, if you go out to a stadium,
Yep.
right, are you focusing, let's talk about Optus Stadium. I know a
Yep.
little bit about Optus, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Right? I have seen them take out the wicket, not in person. I've seen
Yeah,
the
yeah.
photos.
Yep.
It is just sand,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty high amount of sand. They have, I think they've got a hybrid setup, so it's like a artificial fibre in the sand.
Yeah, which
underneath
holds
yeah,
it
it
together.
gives it structure.
Joe
basically.
Rogers talked about that in 2 podcasts ago.
Yep.
When we were talking about the stadium. So when you're saying you've just got, it's just sand there, right?
Yep.
Is the same program that you would put on for, say, Optus, would that work for, say, somebody in, let's say, New South Wales with a bit more of a richer soil, bit more clay going in there?
No, well,
Like, is there a universal basics of fertilizing nutrition-wise?
basically what we do is we look at, well, there's a few things. It's budget. So
Yep.
like, let's say this is a home lawn in the middle of New South Wales and it's 200 square meters, and it's like, well, how much per 100 square meters are you willing to part with for me as a contractor to do to your lawn? And so you can go, okay, all right, you want to spend $300 per 100 square meters. Okay, where should I then appropriate that $300?
Okay.
And I think to get the best bang for your buck,
Well,
out of a lawn-
let's do 3 layers here, right?
Yep.
Let's go. We're talking about 100 square meters.
Yep.
We'll talk nutrition.
Yep.
Let's go a year-long program
Yep.
that is as simple and as cheap. The number one expense is not product. The number one expense is labor time,
Yep.
right? So the least applications. Then we'll go a middle of the range application rate and a higher end.
Yep.
Money's not a problem, right? So if we're going to start with a client, you got a client who's interested in it being nice and green.
Yep.
They want it healthy. There's not enough nutrition. What would you be doing
Yeah.
as a guy who's consulting with stadiums and helping out everybody? Right?
Yeah.
Help us help Aunt
Yeah, yeah.
Margaret out with her lawn.
Yeah. It's the easiest thing. So products, like we have products in our range, there's heaps of products out there. You just look at how long products last.
Okay.
Right? And then you could easily Google the nutrient requirement of Bermuda grass on Google. But I can tell you now, it's about 2 to 3 kilos per 100 square meters
Of fertilizer?
of nitrogen.
Of nitrogen.
Yep. And so for every 1 kilo of nitrogen you put on Bermuda,
Right.
you need about 600 to 700 grams of potassium.
So 2.5 kilos of nitrogen.
Yep.
That's
Per-
not per week, right?
No, that's the whole year.
Whole year.
Yep.
Right. So that's not a lot.
It's not a lot. And so then what you do, then step number 2 is, okay, how many applications or what can they afford? And then how many applications do I want to do on their lawn based on what they can afford? And so there's options based on how long different fertilizers last.
Right.
And so you've got things that are similar to like the Osmocote type product that last 6 months or 4 months or
Right.
5 months. And then there's things that are more sports turf like type product that lasts 2 to 3 months. And then there's the conventionals that last kind of 6 weeks.
Okay.
And
So
you-
let's dumb this down a little bit as well. When somebody goes out to Bunnings,
Yep.
right? The typical Bunnings granule fertilizer, and I know it's different across the country, so there isn't a single brand
Yep.
that usually they're doing it. So over here in WA, you would get a few different ones, and over east, it's a
Yep.
few different. But they're all very similar in that they're usually about a 6-week release, right?
Yep.
That's what we're talking about.
Yep.
So if you are starting with, okay, I need 2.5 kilograms of nitrogen for a year,
Yep.
but I've only got a 6-week release.
You have to divide the number of weeks in the year, 52,
Yep.
by 6. And then that tells you the number of applications.
Right.
And so you go, okay, 52 divided by 6 is, what's that, roughly just under 10. So say 9,
It's
say
about
8.
8.3, I think.
So you have to do 8.3 apps, right?
Roughly, yeah.
And then and then step number 2 is you look at the analysis of the fertilizer. And so say the fertilizer, let's just say it's 20%
Yep.
nitrogen and 15% potassium as an example, just randomly.
Yep. Which is
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. Well, then you can divide. What you do then is you divide the total N you have to give it by the percentage. And so we know we have to give it 2.5 kilos or
Yeah.
2,500 grams.
Yeah.
We divide that by 0.2.
Yeah.
And then that'll spit out the amount. So it'll be, what's that? 5. That's 12.5 kilos of that product you buy over that lawn across the year.
Across the year.
Yep.
So
So we need to do it in roughly 8 apps.
So I'll redo your maths here
Yep.
for everybody. You got 2.5 kilos of nitrogen.
Yep.
Only 20% of the fertilizer is actually nitrogen, right?
Yep.
And that's what the percentages on the back of the bag are,
Yep.
right? So when you do your maths at the 20%, you need 12.5 kilos of the entire fertilizer to get
Yep.
2.5 kilos of fertilizer.
Yep.
Of nitrogen, sorry. So 12.5 kilos of entire fertilizer for your nitrogen requirements for the year.
Yep.
Then we've got a roughly 8 applications.
Yep.
So what's
Yeah.
12.5 kilos
You
divided
can-
by 8?
This is where it can get a little bit, okay. And you mentioned before, just going and throwing your ear on in April, way too much. And so you go, okay, you look at your seasons and you go, okay, we need to do 8 apps because it lasts roughly, or 8.3. So you just say, let's say we do,
8.6. I'll do my maths while you're talking.
let's
I've
just
got
do
my phone
9
here.
apps because it's easy from a rounding point of view. You can't
Yeah.
or you can by rate, but let's just say
Yeah, it's
9
getting a bit
apps.
too, yeah.
And you divide that 12.5 by 9, gives you a rough amount per app.
It's 8.6, okay?
All right, 8.6.
When I said 8.3,
I
was
said
thinking
just below 9, so I was
8
close.
and 1/3, and I was like, it was 8 and 2/3. Okay.
Anyways, it's wrong to just put an even amount out at every single app. Because you go and put, 1.5 kilos on roughly, what's that, 5? Yeah, it's roughly 1.5 kilos per app if it was evenly spaced.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? Warm season grass grows better when it's pushing at 100% when it's at 31 degrees Celsius. And so how do we know how good grass is growing? It's quite simply by getting the average monthly temperatures from your bomb.
Yep.
So January through to December,
Yeah, okay.
and going, okay, in summer, we're pushing at 100% growth, so we should give it probably slightly more than the 1.5 kilos. And then in autumn, autumn and spring, let's give it 1.5
Yeah.
kilos. And then in winter, let's give it less than 1.5 kilos.
So essentially what you're saying is, if I'm going to go and exercise a lot,
Yep.
I should be eating when I'm exercising a lot,
Yep.
and I shouldn't be eating so much when I'm not exercising.
Yep.
Right, so when the plant is growing a lot, it's using a lot of energy, that's when we
Yep.
should be feeding it more.
Yep.
And this comes down to something as well that there's some big misconception, really common with clients. Clients think that hot weather is bad for lawns.
No.
Hot weather is great for warm seasons lawns as long as you have enough water.
Yeah.
And usually what I say to our clients is like, okay, above 35 degrees, maybe then, okay, you might
Start
get
shutting
some
down.
problems,
Yeah.
right? But 30 to 35, right?
Yeah.
Lawns really like that temperature. It's
Yeah.
the water problems. It's
Yeah.
it's hydrophobic soils. So there'll be some people on here as well that in itself,
Yeah.
that's blowing some people's minds because the temperature's too hot. It's
No.
been consistently 30
Yeah.
degrees. Like no, it loves 30 degrees is great. You've
So
got problems somewhere
basically,
else.
if you looked at the range that most warm season turf grows in, it's from about 15 degrees to about 35. That's your range. Cool season 10 to 25. More narrow. There's actually, what we're talking about, there's a term and it's called growth potential. And so the closer you are to 31.
You sound like my primary school teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got potential to grow, kid.
Yeah, that was my report every year. Has a lot of potential. It doesn't apply himself.
But the closer you are to 31, the more it's pushing at 100% growth. So the more it should get the right amount of fert at that point in time. So we know it needs 2.5 kilos of N. If you were to divide 2.5 kilos by 12,
Okay.
it gives us whatever it is, 22.5 kilos per month. But because your growth potential in June isn't 100%, then you don't give it 22.5. It might only be 30%. So you only give it 7 kilos
So,
of elemental N. So you split your year up into how warm it's basically like a grow curve.
yeah, so essentially what we're getting at is when the lawn is growing hard,
Yep.
right, and this is a mistake that I made with the urea, right, is I tried to make it grow when it just wasn't going to grow. Too cold,
Yep.
right, not enough sunlight, and then I chuck on a bunch of fertilizer. A lot of that fertilizer is just wasted,
Yep.
right? And there's other things that we can talk about how granule fertilizers are actually absorbed,
Yep.
microbes, temperature, how that affects that as well.
Yep.
That's getting really...
Yeah, that's getting a bit hectic, but it affects.
it's
I think one of the
important.
effects is the day-to-day running of the average contractor's business. Because if you look at it, you can either do the 9 apps with a more conventional type release,
Yep.
and even then, if you get a bout of rain like you had last week
Huge
here
amount.
in Perth, a conventional release more than likely is probably gone. And so
Washed away.
now there's 4 weeks where you've got no nutrition sitting there in the deck. Whereas once you take a step up to the higher end, so like a slow release or then a controlled release, because they're actually different. So again,
Yeah, I can
surprising.
dive in now because I'm aware
Yeah.
of this stuff. So let me get to the heart of what this is for the average contractor. You've got people who they want to improve their lawns,
Yep.
right? You have some options, and we're just starting with the basics is feed the lawn when it's actually hungry and it needs it,
Yeah.
just like you would feed yourself when you're exercising.
Yeah.
Don't be applying heaps in winter, right? And so this is the problem people will get is they've got their lawns might be struggling in some sections now,
Yeah.
right? Can't handle wear and tear. It's too late. There's not much you can do about it now. Okay, we're in June, middle of June almost when we're recording this, right?
Yep.
So let's stay on now. Let's go into the slow release stuff because here's the big thing I was trying to lead you towards.
Yep.
This is one of the things that would differentiate a higher end contractor and a lower end contractor.
Yep.
This is knowing the difference between a slow release and a quick release, because you can go down the route of a cheaper fertilizer, right?
Yep.
And you will get results because 80% of the difference in at least here in WA, because our sandy soil is just rubbish, there's nothing in them at all.
Yep.
The difference between using a fertilizer and using no fertilizer is 70, 80, something like that percent of the difference.
Yeah. Yep.
However, the problem comes is that to apply a fertilizer 9 times a year for a client, that actually is very expensive because it's not the product that's the most expensive thing for a
Yeah.
client. It's the labor.
It's time.
So when we go and apply a fertilizer, let's say 100 square meters, let's
Yeah.
say it's $7 for the fertilizer,
Yeah.
right? We might be charging, I don't even know what we charge off the top of my head.
Doesn't even matter.
It's-
If
it'd be-
it takes you half, if you just on
It'd be
charge
like
half an hour
$60
or
or
something.
something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I don't know, 50, $60.
If you looked at it from a
Don't quote me on this, people. Don't go
accounting-
do your quoting based on those numbers, but you
Yeah,
get the idea.
But the variable cost of the fert is probably the cheaper component.
100%.
And so it's like
the
that's where
fertilizer
you
is
should.
always the cheaper stuff.
Yeah.
So then you might have people out there who are contractors thinking, I want to have the cheaper thing for my client because they're on a budget. And they've shot themselves in the foot because their fertilizer is only going to last for 6, 7, 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a place and time for those fertilizers. And if you know what you're doing,
Yeah.
right, you can do that. So if you're a home lawn person and you are super on a budget, you can do what you just said by breaking down your nutrient requirements into those 8 or 9 applications,
Yeah.
right? And then using the cheaper fertilizer and saving yourself $70 a year.
Yeah.
But when you talk about clients,
Yeah.
your slow release that can last, well, how long are some of your options at ICL lasting for?
4 to 5 months is one option, which I believe is probably one of the leading options for a contractor.
Now, when we talk about that as well, so
Yeah.
a lot of, when you have releases, and this gets a bit technical, sometimes it's not all slow release.
Yeah.
So you might have a 90-10 breakdown where 10% is instant,
Yeah.
90% or like a 50-50 or...
Yeah, yeah.
So what is this? Is it 100% slow release?
Yeah, so it's 100% controlled release. So I
Right, yeah.
controlled. So there's actually, no, that's too technical. I was going to say there's
Well,
actually ISO accredited terminology about what makes a slow release, what makes a stabilized release, and what makes a controlled release, and that they are different products.
Well, let me tell you what I know. Because if it goes beyond what I know, we're probably lost. We're stuck here.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
Here's what I know. I know that I think it's now I'm getting already getting beyond what I know. Is it urea formaldehyde
Yep.
is not easily accessible for lawn? Is that right? And you need microbes to break it down.
Yeah, it's methylene urea. So moisture and temperature will then encourage microbial activity, which
To
will then
break
break
it down,
the
and it
urea.
turns it into
Yeah.
a nitrogen
Yeah.
that the lawn can actually use.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is a form of a slow release
Yep.
because it's has to be broken down over
The
time
challenge,
to be used.
and then this is why the terminology is different, because a slow release you cannot actually control the release pattern. So again, last week's Perth rainfall, a slow release on the deck right then.
So that
most
type,
likely.
what we're talking about, the type of I just explained,
Yeah.
a general fertilizer, essentially that. So you would have a fertilizer, like they say, a liquid,
Yeah.
that gets straight into the plant,
Yep.
right? There's nothing breaking it down. It's instant.
Yeah, but the day that you apply a liquid is the day that 30% of that dissolved in the tank volatilizes, so it is lost by ammonia gas, as an example, and then
Right. Okay.
and then the day that you apply it, the plant can only perceive or uptake
A certain amount.
1 to 3% of that in solution, and then the rest is generally lost after irrigation. So a lot of the time, some of those calcs you can do, like the plant only might only take in theory 30% of what you put down in terms of like a liquid fertilizer. So it can be extremely inefficient. But
So we have the three. I'm trying to get the three different types that you usually have, because you're talking about the efficiency of them. I'm just saying there's this super instant modes of action,
conventional release,
right?
then there's slow release,
the slow release, which is usually broken down.
and then there's stabilized urea, which like inhibits microbial activity or carbon coated
Yep.
products. And then there's
Coated.
control release, which are like polymer.
Right, and the word that people would have seen when they go to Bunnings, they would have
Yeah.
seen Osmocote,
Yeah.
right? And what that is a literal coating
Yeah.
on the. Now it's a coating on the granule, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And
It's
it-
like a rain jacket.
Yes, and
Yeah.
so as that coating wears away, right?
Yeah. And this is the big thing that I think where people's perception of what a control release changes. And this is what I'll explain to you.
let me pause you for a second so I can keep everybody on track. We got the three different types.
Yep.
So if you
Or 4 in total.
four, yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I'm keeping them really simple. Some
Yeah.
of some fertilizers instantly
Conventional.
gone.
Yep.
It's there and gone.
Yep.
Amazing green up. You can use them sometimes when you need
Yep.
a really quick green up. Okay.
Yep.
Some fertilizers, they break down a little bit slower,
Yep.
right? And it's just how they are released is a little bit slower. And
Yep.
then some fertilizers have special coatings, and those coatings can be manipulated or manufactured in different ways to extend or reduce how long that fertilizer is released for.
Yep.
And so what you get at is that last group of fertilizers we just talked about are very expensive, usually because the manufacturing process is a lot more complicated than just chucking some chemicals in a bag.
Yeah.
But they are so cheap because you go from 9 applications a year for the client, that is, cheaper for a client. You go from 9 applications a year. If you're talking 4 or 5 months, what is that? 3, you know, on a higher end.
Yeah.
And so you can get the same amount of nitrogen out. And this is where the smart contractor can really have that higher end quality of service without having to be incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking about, let's say we're doing $50 an application for 100 square meters, just keep it nice and round figure.
Yeah.
That's $450 a year, right? Just for 9 applications.
Yep.
If I go to $80 an application, and I do it 3 times a year,
Yeah.
right? I'm 240.
Yep.
So I'm almost half the cost.
Yeah. Better outcome.
Right. And so I'm charging more, but I'm making more per application, but the client is, and this is exactly
and to
what
be honest, the plant, in all terms, like I can tell you, like I've run so many trials on this path because half my role is running trials. The plant, at the health of the turf, and then what you'll be cutting, the results will speak for themselves. Like it'll be night and day. The difference between 3 apps and 9 apps, the quality of the turf with just 3 apps of control release will be so much better.
So let's talk about how control release works.
Yep.
Right? Now this is where let's talk about how it actually can, for the health stuff, how it releases, how it actually lasts long.
So this is what surprises people. So if anyone's used Osmocote, and there's probably some Osmocote in these pots here. If everyone's used Osmocote before, it's actually in the name. So Osmocote is a take on a name. Osmocote is the take on osmosis. And so the way control release works is through osmotic pressure. And so essentially...
What does that mean?
Yeah. And I'll explain what that means.
Was that French? I don't know. What language is that?
It means French for yogurt. No.
We're joking about before, like many leather-bound books.
Essentially, there's what we do is we make a compound NPK fertilizer, which normally has trace elements, because when you put stuff in a relatively free draining soil, you need to deliver every nutritional element under the sun.
Yes.
And so we make a fertilizer that has everything in it as one prill. And then what we do is we use a vegetable oil resin. That's essentially what makes the polymer.
Okay.
To coat the outside.
Is this like what we're cooking? Vegetable oils?
It's probably some kind of thing along the chain, but it's basically an extracted from vegetable oil. And we coat the outside of the prill.
Right.
But because, like all things in life, you can never get it perfect, that prill essentially has imperfections on the outside.
Right, yeah.
So it's got essentially pore spaces in the prill.
Holes.
Yep, holes. And
see, you say the technical stuff. I just throw
holes.
in. I throw in the,
And so essentially, the day that you apply it and walk away, and then within the next rain event or irrigation event, is the day that thing will start its release process.
So is it that you've got like let's say you got a basketball.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And the air inside of it.
Yep.
Is let's say a water balloon.
Yeah.
Right. And the water inside of it's got some nutrients.
Yeah.
And if it's not popping up too much. I just prick a tiny little hole in it. It will slowly.
Yeah.
Like a tiny hole, so it's just dripping.
Yeah.
Just dripping out of it. That's essentially what you're talking about there with the coating, right?
But essentially, then no amount of water is going to affect the speed of that release. Because what affects the speed of the release is how thick the coating is. So a fert that lasts a really long time, so we have ones that are 22 to 24 months as an example.
Wait, for turf? Or?
No.
I was going
Our longest for turf, not in this market, but in Europe, is just 8 to 9. But we've got 4 to 5 is probably our longest in this market that I would recommend.
Yep.
So that thickness, that outside thickness then determines how long it lasts.
Right.
And so what happens is you put it down, you either irrigate or it rains 10 weeks later or something,
Yep.
that starts to release, or a bit of dew rolls off the leaf around that thing, and then what happens is a small amount of water enters through the pore,
Yep.
so starts to solubilize that NPK,
Yep.
and you can control the NPK, so the source of NPK, so it can be nitrate.
Which is what we were just talking about
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
There's certain types of, so dumbing it out again, there's certain types
Yeah,
of
yeah.
nitrogen which are readily available, certain
Yeah, yeah.
types that aren't.
Yep.
So you can put those in. So it's like multi-layers of,
Yeah.
it's not just as it's coming out, then you can then have it come out and then take time to be broken down too.
Yep. And then essentially, because it's more salty on the inside, it's unhappy about this. No, it's got a higher salt
Yeah,
index on the inside
a
of
bit
the
grumpy.
prill than the outside of the prill.
Right?
It pushes through osmotic pressure because the salt in your surrounding soil isn't as high. It pushes
Right.
a small amount of salt to the outside of the prill every single day for the stated longevity of the prill. And so the longevities that we state are based at a base temperature, and that base temperature is 21 degrees Celsius. And so if we say it lasts 4 to 5 months, that 4 to 5 months is 4 to 5 months at 21 degrees Celsius consistently.
So would a 35 degree,
It would release slightly quicker,
okay,
and
higher
we've
temperature?
got software programs that work that out. And often what you'll find is, a hot week is only going to change the release by like 1 week.
Okay.
It has to be consistently hot daytime and nighttime temperatures for really long periods of time.
Well, Perth is, especially recently.
Yeah.
We had some insane.
Yeah,
like-
hot heat waves kind of
Yeah,
thing.
we didn't have a 40-degree day this summer, but
Yeah.
we were the hottest.
So I'd say like
City,
that
capital
4 to
city.
5 month product, you put it out, it might just limp into 4 months.
But that actually works out the maths a bit better, hey? So let's
Yeah.
say on the lower end you get 3.5,
Yep.
right? And then you get 4.5, and then
Yep.
you get 5.
Yeah.
Well, that's more than 12. What is that? That's 13 months.
Yeah.
So it's still 3 applications a year
Yeah.
for that product. And then we go back to that numbers and
Yeah.
how to talk to the client. And so this is like for the tips for the average contractor. Or like,
Yeah.
let's say you're working in a school like I was back in the day, and they're like, oh, we don't have the budget for fertilizer.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Right? It's not actually...
Yeah.
Right. Now, what would be then, on a really basic level, I see a problem, and I've experienced this problem with really slow release fertilizers when you need an instant impact, because let's say you've done a verti mowing or a renovation,
Yeah.
right? And what that would be is, for those who don't know, you come in with vertical, like what you call verti mower, rip up the turf, scalp it down essentially to dirt,
Yeah.
right? Maybe top dress it and cover it in a bunch of sand, and you've just abused the heck out of that thing. It needs some energy.
Yeah.
Would you recommend now a 4 month, 5 months release in that scenario? Or does it depend how you use it?
Well, it depends how you want to use it, because what you can do is, like, and this is a technical term, but you can side dress. So you can go a conventional for the first 4 weeks, so like fast release to get it back.
Yep.
And then after 4 weeks, then put out your control release.
Yep.
That's going to go the distance, but because you've already grown back a fair amount and utilized up a big hit, you can go at a slightly lower rate of your longer term control release.
Right.
At that. So it's all about looking at what rate you go at what time of year as well.
Yeah.
Because if you go in summer, the grass needs more, it wants to get fat, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Then in that 3.5, 4 month block, it might be 4 kilos per 100 square meters. But then if you're putting an app down in April, you might only go 2.5 or 3, because it doesn't need as much nutrition.
Yes.
April, May, June, July, August.
So here's another problem I can see then.
Yeah.
Right. A contractor listens to this podcast and they go, that nitrogen stuff seems a little bit too technical.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just going to chuck it in my spread and throw it out there. Right.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, they're going to get some really bad thatchy problems. If let's say they've double or triple applied the product.
Yeah.
And then it's 4 months.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to basically make your lawn fat.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it doesn't matter how much exercise you're doing. If you can have McDonald's every day,
Yeah.
So you're putting out too much nutrition.
Over delivery.
So you're going to get a really thatchy lawn. That's when it gets spongy, and then you need to do your vertimilling and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm getting at here is, I mean, a lot of people in the industry, like, you know, I know some people who do a lot of really good work, and they do now, but they didn't measure their fertilizer when they were applying.
Yeah.
And they never calibrated their machine or checked it.
It's not a hit on contractors though, mate. In the professional sector, a big question I ask is how much nutrition you put on. And I'm like, strip products out. Like, let's not even look at it from a product point of view. Like, how much NPK, Cal, Mag, Sulfur do you put on your turf?
Yeah.
I reckon 1 out of 10 professional turf managers can give me a straight answer on
golf
that.
course guys, stadium managers.
Yep.
Right, Aunt Margaret down the road, she's pro too. No. But
Well,
those at that level, they're not.
Yeah.
So
And it's surprising.
But this is the thing about the internet, which I love, which is what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
You know, what we're doing here is hopefully taking, people who have a good understanding of lawn and giving them the same sort of tips and advice that you could never have gotten unless you were.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, it's not as hard as people think to write a basic program. Exactly what we've been through. That is pretty much day to day when I'm tasked with writing programs. I look at how long the fert lasts. I look at the analysis of the fert. I look at time of year. So I use that growth potential thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look at crop requirement. And then there might be a few other factors that feed into it. Budget.
Yep.
Water quality, if they're on town water or whatever. We can take a soil test and pick up how it currently exists, which will give us insight into how they've currently been operating. Because that's also a service that the average lawn contractor could easily offer.
So, like, basically taking some samples of soil, sending it off to a lab.
Yeah.
And that's some of this as well. There's a lot of sizzle to it.
Yeah.
Because, and by sizzle, I mean, so let's say, so you go to a restaurant, right? We're talking business stuff now.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, and they will say something like, I can't even think of I haven't been to a restaurant in a while, to be honest.
You're going tonight. You'll find out what they say.
No, I actually I'm going to my mum's house tonight. I said I was going out to dinner, but it's just. But if you go to a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
If you go to Macca's, it's just like it's a cheeseburger, right?
Yeah.
But if you go to a fancy restaurant, it's like
they build it
Angus
up.
beef patty
Yeah.
with Margaret River tomato sauce and this and that and Himalayan pink salt and lettuce from this place. And you get it, it's a burger, right? And it tastes good, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But a lot of it is a sizzle, and some of these things for these clients is if you, I use this as a trick all the time, where it's like you just throw in a couple of no, you're not fluffing the words, but real words. Opportunity comes up, and you're like, oh look, it's just you're lacking a bit of nitrogen there. Right, it looks like you probably use a bit too much fast release. Let's put some controlled release down and be slower going, And how about we do a soil test? Man, those 3 or 4 things I just said put you in the top 1% of contractors in the country easily. The stuff we're talking about, when we get really technical here, right? It's like, that's not necessary. I mean, if you love this stuff, and a lot of people love this stuff who listen to this podcast, but the basics are really what you're getting at. It's like, man, if you just measure your applications, you know the difference between slow, controlled, and what did you call it? Contemporary, not contemporary? Conventional.
And then there's stabilised. So they're the 4.
Don't talk to me about, okay.
There's also adaptive, but I won't get into that.
That sounds a bit... No, so, all right. So we start with that.
Yeah.
Right. Here's what I would say, and it sounds like the same thing. Guys, look into your products. Look into the slow release, controlled release, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Go for a controlled release if you can.
Yeah.
If you've got something that's in a state of where it needs a lot of love and attention, now you know you've got different weapons for different battles.
The other thing I would say is if you don't think you're technical enough to even take any of what we've said on board, what you might find is if you can convince or even just have that conversation to try and convince your customer to go down the soil testing path, then for you to just try and find someone locally that can help you analyze that soil test but put it through a lab, whether it's your local turf supplier or whatever, what you'll find is just dealing with them, like as a customer, they will help you through that process. And so they will explain that and educate you along the way.
Yeah.
So from a professional development point of view, you'll become more savvy on then going down the track, how to recommend things more effectively,
Yep.
but also being a bit more technical. Like you will just learn that by nature of going through the process. Yeah.
Do you... So, soil test, knowing the difference between these things. Let's move on to liquid fertilizers.
Yeah.
Do you guys do a lot of liquid fertilizers?
Yeah, and this is the thing, like people go, oh, there's like conventionals or not conventionals, like control release. Like Osmocote is probably our like flagship brand, right?
Yep.
ICL is actually I think it is the biggest manufacturer of water-soluble fertilizers in the world.
Water soluble meaning stuff you can put in
Stuff that you
spray
dissolve
tank.
into a spray tank and then spray on crops.
So
basically.
this would be... So some people, all they know about liquid fertilizers is it's literally a liquid.
Yeah,
And you just
it's in a
pour it
liquid. And so like a cheap, if you think about it from an efficiency point of view and a cost efficiency point of view, liquids are more expensive because, particularly from a distribution point of view, because
Yep.
even as a contractor, like if you've got to take a 10-litre drum of liquid, that's probably the equivalent of like 50 grams of water-soluble fert.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Or you know, like an amount, like if it's 10% urea, then really you've got 1 kilo of urea prill.
Well, I did a urea liquid fert on
Yeah.
this lawn, 200 square meters, and I think it was like 3 tablespoons.
Yeah, it's not a lot. Like, and depending on how much you put out, but it might be like 50 grams across
I
the
didn't
whole
actually
lot.
get a tablespoon for those listening.
Yeah.
Literally scoop it out. But I just did a bit of research and I was like, I
Yeah.
only wanted a little bit of a nitrogen hit because I
Yeah.
put down an iron and manganese and I was like, nah,
Carrier kind of thing.
I needed some more nitrogen.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I have urea in a bag. And so I literally just put it in, you wait for it to dissolve,
Yeah.
you know, apply it out. Ben Sims been doing a bit on this with his green.
A lot of the time, a lot of the problems what you see, because like we mentioned before, like get your nitrogen right, get your K right, or your potassium. A lot of things start falling into place magically because guess what? Turf needs nitrogen probably more than any of the products
To be healthy and
you'll
stuff.
ever put out there. And so like some way to diagnose a really basic issue on the lawn is, does it need nitrogen? And it can be quite simple as to dissolve a small amount of urea. Like I'm talking 50 grams in 4 litres of water and spray it on 100 square metres. And if you see a response, then you know that there's capability to feed with nitrogen there.
Well, a lot of that stuff is not what a contractor will be able to do because
No.
they have to charge for their time.
No.
But if you are at a facility like your aged care facility, a retirement village,
Yeah.
right, and you are the sole gardener, you can do that. Like
Yeah.
a lot of these places may have like lots of smaller patches of lawn.
Yeah.
That's my belly rumbling, by the way.
If you got like body corporate or something, or like you're looking after something that's got space, room to muck around.
You can trial.
Yeah, you can muck
Right.
around with those kinds of things. Like, and it's what that'll do is then you could then go to the person's lawn down the road that looks very similar and know that that's probably what it needs because you've done it and shown it and proven it in your own mind.
Let's so if we're talking about what if we can get a whole year out of 3 applications of granule fert,
Yeah.
why would we ever use liquid? Now here's the other thing.
The big reason for liquid and the reason in some of our programs we have liquid, there's a few things. We use it to deliver a surfactant or a wetting agent.
Yep.
Because a lot of the people we deal with, pumping the water is a massive cost. Some of them are on town water, which is also a massive cost.
Here in WA we have water restrictions.
Yeah, so it's an issue, and it will. I feel like across Australia, particularly East Coast, it'll probably become an issue because I feel like we're going to go back. There's talk that we're going to go back into drier than normal conditions. So,
Yeah.
Wetting agents will be on a lot of people's thoughts. So that's a great way to deliver.
I think here in WA, right, if you had come to me with a Kikuyu lawn or a Cooch lawn,
Yeah.
right, and you were like, you have the choice of fertilizer or wetting agent,
Yeah.
right, you can only pick one, which is a dumb choice. Like, you would never ever have that scenario.
Yeah.
Here, because our soils are so sandy and hydrophobic, I would go wetting agent.
Yeah.
Because if you put a fertilizer out, you get hydrophobic spots and it just gets patchy.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
won't get the colour, you won't get the vibrancy, but at least it'll be fairly even.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and you're the foundational part of here in WA, like, invest in your reticulation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get that right. Get your sprinkler system working first.
Yep.
Wetting agents, granule fert, that's so much of it. you
Yeah,
know?
I would say that 95% of the program I design, granular nutrition base, delivering about 85% of the nutrition.
Right. So
Wetting agent next. So like looking at time of year, look at rainfall, like historical rainfall patterns over months or whatever, and go,
Yep.
okay, for those 8 months it needs wetting agent, and for those 4 months it still needs wetting agent, but then it might need a penetrant type product that pushes water through the profile
Right.
as such. And so they're like, it's like this stepwise, like nutrition, moisture management, then liquids. And then liquids, you go, well, what can I carry with the wetting agent app? And so then you look at soil drenches. So things that are more...
so you're getting your bang for buck because you're putting in a wetting agent and a liquid fertilizer
Yeah.
at the same time.
And so rather than put 2 apps out, put 1 app
So
out.
here's something that I find interesting because I've never done that.
Yeah.
Well, no, I have. But
Yep.
I'm usually doing that when I'm also doing like a barricade application.
Yep.
So I've put the barricades pre-emergent. So I'll put a surfactant in or a wetting agent in to help it get into the soil.
Yeah.
And I'm already doing that, so I may as well put some iron or something in there
And
for a little
people
green
tank
up.
mix a Celiprin with
Yeah, I do as
barricade
well,
as an example. And then with a wetting agent, and then with a... Potentially, you could go a soil drench,
Well,
obviously, if it's tank.
Here's what I'm trying to get at, right? Because with liquid, you want it a lot of the time. Well, what I've heard, so tell me if I'm wrong. What I've heard is you want it absorbed through the leaf.
Yep.
If it's washing into the soil, not quite as good.
Depending on the type of liquid, because a lot of the new liquids that are coming out now, they're not just liquids. They're like a MPK with a biostimulant attached to it. So they might have some kind of microbial biostimulants with it, or they might have something like kelp or seaweed.
Like a seaweed product, yeah.
They might have
Like a
carbohydrates.
humic acid or something like
yeah,
that.
things like that, which might help the mode of entry or help the uptake of the MPK initially on the leaf.
Yeah.
But really, they're more effective in the root system after they're irrigated
Right,
in.
100%.
And so like a wetting agent, polymer base, a lot of them are synthetic based polymers.
So, but with a wetting agent, the problem you're getting is if you leave it on the leaf,
Yeah.
you can burn the leaf.
And so again, it's timing.
So I've had it before here, right?
Yeah.
So that shady section,
Yep.
right? I was getting some compaction there,
Yep.
right? And it was the middle of the day. It was like 32, 33. I brought out, in a watering can, I put some, like a good quality wetting agent in,
Yep.
and I put it in my spot, okay? I got my hose with the butterfly sprinkler on it, and I stuck it in there, and I turned it on. So I don't know how much time that is, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, right? So immediately watering it in, went back in, okay? Next day, I've got burn,
Yeah.
right? And it is so clear where the burn is that you can see the individual lines of where...
Yeah.
Yeah, well, not in the middle, but on the edge. You know,
Yeah.
there's some rogue
Yeah,
lines of product out of the watering can,
Yep.
and it's like that. So sometimes it's that quick. I don't know. Is that like?
It comes down to the types. This will get way too technical, but it comes down to the type of polymers they are. Like wetting agents and the way they're formulated, they have different types of polymers.
So this was more a retainer and penetrant.
Yep. So I would say that it's the retainer sitting on the surface, almost like filming, almost hourglassing the turf.
Right. So for those who are listening, a penetrant is what you talked about before about getting it into the
Yep.
soil.
And the mode of action of a penetrant is exactly the same as like people call them stickers that they mix with like Roundup
Yep.
to kill weeds and stuff. Essentially, all that a penetrant does, it doesn't actually push water through. It can't change the effects of gravity. All it does is spread a droplet of water as far as it can,
Right.
and break surface tension. And then gravity does the rest. So that's what a penetrant does. It's
So
a marketing term, but
A retainer though will help the water stay in the soil a little bit more.
yeah, people, and this is again where the average punter will get confused. Is people say that wetting agents work on the soil and they don't.
Interesting.
Wetting agents are called surfactants, and what surfactant actually is like an acronym of a terminology, and it stands for surface acting agent. And so
Okay.
what a surfactant does is act on the surface of the soil particle and then act on the surface of the water droplet. That's what a surfactant does. It does not work on soil. Anyone that tells you that it does is probably misleading you.
Okay.
And so generally the function of most of those blended wetting agents, there's a few things, but like a short chain polymer will essentially break those weak hydrogen bonds. Because if you look at a water molecule, H2O, So for every oxygen molecule, you've got 2 hydrogen molecules. And that's why, like, so for every other hydrogen, it joins to an oxygen, hydrogen, oxygen. It forms like a round. That's why water beads when it sits, because of the way it hydrogen bonds. And so the function of a surfactant is to break those weak bonds and then spread that droplet. And so the true measure of how good a surfactant works is how well it spreads one singular droplet of water. And then that goes in, and then we use what's called a humectant, which is like a film former. It forms like a film on a surface, and that attaches to like a soil particle or a sand particle. And then the block copolymer, which is like a large kind of synthetic polymer, attaches to the humectant, and then the water attaches to the block copolymer.
So it sounds like, let me dumb it down again. You got some double-sided tape,
Yep.
right. So you've got your we're zooming in, and the grain of sand is now the size of a rock.
Yep.
We stick some double-sided tape on it.
Yep.
Right.
Which is the humectant.
Right.
Yep.
And the water sticks to the double-sided tape. Is that what you're saying?
Yes and no. The water, that creates the interface for the block copolymer to attach,
So
or
it's
the long piece of double-sided tape, and then the water attaches to that. So you've got like, yeah. So
But essentially, there's 2 things in there that are a little bit sticky.
yeah.
And instead of the water
And then-
just sliding through, it helps it stay in the soil a little bit better.
And then there's other things in there that bring it all together.
So with the surfactant, so we've talked about this before. I can't remember who it was with. I think it might have been with Nadeem, where when you use a surfactant with a herbicide, right?
Yep.
So it, instead of you having a nice little circle bead
Yep.
that sits on the leaf, and I'm explaining this for the people listening, it flattens it out a lot more.
Yeah.
Right. Surface tension is, I guess it's reduced. Would it be?
Yeah, yeah.
So one, let's say you've got a tiny little bead, right? Well, the herbicide is only going to get uptaken or taken into the plant through that tiny little bead. You
Yep.
spread it out, the same amount of herbicide, more of it's
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
in quicker.
So we got a penetrant, really just designated surfactant. It can spread.
So what I was going to get at with,
of water,
if it-
2,500 square millimeters.
well, if it's doing that with on the leaf,
Yeah,
you're saying it's also doing that in the soil.
in the soil.
So instead of the it just sitting on the soil in a tiny little bead, it spreads it out,
Yeah.
and then gravity does its things. It's got essentially, it's like having a bottleneck in a
Yeah, yeah.
highway.
Yeah.
You got your 4 lanes to do, their roadworks down to 1. Takes a
Yeah,
long
yeah.
time for those cars to get through.
Yeah.
You spread out, open the lanes. The droplet is spread out wider.
Yeah.
So the penetrant is essentially, so we stay in this. I went to herbicides.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's
No,
stay on
that
those-
was just to explain it though, because in hydrophobic soils, because what it is like breaking down of organic matter. Also happens a lot in potting media.
It does,
'Cause
big time.
You're growing stuff predominantly in pine bark potting media.
And I'll touch on something there as well, guys. Watch out for this with pots. Is sometimes you
Yeah.
water the pot and you see the water get out the
Yeah,
bottom.
you can just depot. So like take the pot out, and what you'll see is like these wicks of water.
They're actually just going down the side of the pot.
That's called preferential flow. And so like it's the surfactant part.
Is that French again?
Yeah, yeah. So all it means is the water prefers to flow where water's been before, because
we're using so many technical
Yeah,
words
yeah.
here. I feel like I'm like a translator.
water follows water though, because
It's like making a tiny little river.
yeah, because of hydrogen bonding. Like,
So if we go back, let's
Yeah,
go
yeah.
back to the soil.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to make sure that we are all on the same page of understanding.
gets rid of that
Spreads it out.
potential for preferential flow.
So I cut you off before. You said 1 drop of the surfactant spreads it out. How big?
2,500 square millimeters.
How many centimeters? 25 centimeters?
I don't know, because we do it on like those little like millimeter graph paper. It's a lot. It's
Okay,
it's one of
let's
the
be
leading-
honest. No one listening to this podcast has used a millimeter graph paper.
Yeah, I know. They probably
we
haven't. I don't
used
even know what that
centimeter when I
is.
was at school.
What is that? Is that I don't even know. What's the
Google.
square root of that?
Square root of
2,500. And then that'll tell us millimeters by millimeters,
Okay,
and then we can say how many square centimeters it is.
this shows up how smart we are, right? Square millimeters to square centimeters. People are we've used so many different technical terms, but
Yeah, yeah.
oh, and I'm in a dead spot. So let's talk. Okay, so as it's finding it, oh no, it's up. So 2,500,
Yeah. It's a lot.
25 square centimeters,
Yeah.
which would be about 5
5
by
5 centimeters.
Okay.
And that's a 20 microliter droplet. So I don't
That'd
even...
be about that, right?
Yeah, and that's, you know, like one of
About
those pipettes, the little ones you get, like if you like give your kid like Panadol or whatever,
Yeah.
and you take up like 0.2 of a mil. like a really
Yes,
small amount.
yes.
And just put like a single droplet of
Yep.
water on a bit of Perspex. It'll just sit there as a bead.
It'll be about like maybe 2 mil by 2 mil or something.
Yeah,
like that.
so this one will spread that 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters.
So it's basically, if we're saying it's 2 mil,
Yep.
right? 2 mil into, it's 25. 2 mil into 5,
Yeah.
50 mil is 25 times greater spreading capacity.
Yep.
So let's rehash, all right?
Yep. Yeah.
Because I like what we're doing here. 'Cause I'm learning some stuff here too, right? So for the fertilizers we go, there's a difference between how much it releases, and the more you're aware of that, the better you can get a turf plan that doesn't cost $1 billion and still get the same
Yeah.
results.
Yeah.
When you get now into the surfactant versus so a penetrant versus a retaining agent, I'm going to
Yeah.
use those words
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're
No, that's
usually
fine.
what's on the marketing material as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
The penetrant is really, it's not really penetrating, it's spreading the water
Yep.
in a wider area.
Yep.
So just like we said with the traffic jam, why you're opening up more lanes for that water to go down because it's
Yep.
spread out more, right? And it's
Yep.
not just beating there. So it gets down quicker,
Yep.
right? If it doesn't get down and the sun rises after you've watered it in the morning, it'll evaporate away.
Yep.
Right? So you're saving that. And then we've got a couple of different types of double-sided tape.
Yeah. Yeah.
That-
Basically.
So they
Yeah,
stick
yeah.
they stick to the rocks,
Yeah.
they stick to the water, and so that holds it in there,
Yeah.
right? Now, let's get back to liquid fertilizing with a wetting agent.
Yeah.
Because you're saying the retaining agent can burn, and we have found this a lot. There's two brands that I'm not going to mention the brands, but when I've used, I've talked about this on the podcast before. I don't like mentioning brands because
Yeah. I've been trying to avoid it. The only one I've mentioned, I think, is Osmocote. And the reason is that is more to explain osmosis.
So
Yeah.
I used a product that has gotten a lot of really good rap as a wetting agent over east, right? It just wasn't
Yep.
very good here, right?
Yep.
And I think it's just because of the sandy soil, and I think it was probably mostly a penetrant.
I would
Right.
say exactly that. Generally, people think wetting agents aren't good because they're not using it how it was probably designed or intended. Or because there's only
Well,
so
it
much...
worked.
like-
It just didn't last very long.
I think the acronym I want to make is like, let's say you've got like a footy team
Yeah,
and you will go, oh, I put him up front because he's tall. I put him in the wing because he's fast.
yeah.
Put him in the midfield because he's a beast. You know, like, it's the same thing for a wetting agent.
Where do I go? On the bench?
I'm like on the Excel spreadsheet out the back or something.
You're the coaching staff. You're the data analyst.
Yeah, something like that, like the Moneyball guy. You got to do it, man. But there's only so much you can fit in a bottle, right? And so whatever you can fit in, then depending on how good your marketing and how good your interpretation of how to use that product is, then will determine how good the outcome is for the punter. And so if I take basically like a penetrant and go, here, use this in WA in the middle of summer when you're not getting rain and you're trying to keep water up into the top 100 mil
Yeah,
root
it
zone,
would just run through.
good luck. You know, like, and some products, that product you may have used may have been far too high in penetrant percentage
Yeah.
versus moisture retainer type polymers. And so it probably didn't hold the more water where you wanted it to be. Wrong, maybe right brand of range, wrong type of product within the range. Because we've got,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and lots
yeah.
of different companies have different options. And
yeah.
So it's just, but the two that I've used over here that are from different brands that I found really good. Both these are liquids. We'll talk about granule in a second, actually, granule
Yeah.
wetting agents, but they both are much higher in their retaining agents.
Yeah.
Makes them quite thick.
Yeah.
Look, and that's it's funny because you talk about the penetrant being like it mixes really well with water, and the retaining agents sometimes you have to really agitate it to
Yeah.
get it in the tank. Anyway, so it's just an interesting thing there. So I guess really what you're saying is you have the opportunity with liquid fertilizers. We're going back to what we're talking about for 85% or so. You can go from granule. Now, I'll just say this is what we do over here, right? You can critique, open to critique it. We get most of our nutrition through granule
Yeah.
because of the cost effectiveness of it.
Yep.
What I have found, especially in the residential market, where you have really weird shapes, it's actually really hard to apply granule
Yep.
evenly,
Yep.
right? So you might, like, for example, a really common thing that probably doesn't happen in stadium turf, that happens in residential turf, right? You put your granule out, it's going all over the paths. You got to
Yep.
blow it in, okay?
Yep.
Sometimes, without realising, you've blown it off a little bit of lawn. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah,
Because you've got to blow right up.
Yeah.
So I've had it before where it's like the turf in the middle of the lawn is really nice.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The turf next to the fence is really nice because hit the fence and bounce back in.
Yep.
And I realised I've blown too hard.
Yeah.
Right? And so the colour is... Let's not go into compound... Oh, maybe we should. Okay, I'll very, very briefly. Some fertilisers, right, everything in a blend together.
Yep.
All nutrients in one granule.
Yeah, yep.
Some fertilizers are a bit of nitrogen, a bit of iron, a bit of
Yeah,
potassium, right? And I've even found with that if you don't get an even spread, sometimes you get all the iron is dusty and it comes out. And
Yep.
liquid though, right, is so much easier to get a very even finish.
Yeah. It is. It's and that's why wetting agents are, or you get better efficacy, like how effective it is in a liquid format, because it comes down to how even you can apply it, but also the loading rate that you can put on when you do apply it. Because if you look at, like we mentioned, the difference between like liquid and granular, in wetting agents, it's like the inverse as it would be to granular fert. So like in granular fert versus liquid, you can put far more nutrition on granular feeding than liquid.
Yeah.
You know, like one granular feed is the equivalent of 8 to 10, or depending if you're going fortnightly.
Well, if you over apply,
But
could be 100.
like it can be like
What is
however
it?
many liquid feeds.
Yeah.
Whereas granular, like, and same with things like Acelepryn GR or whatever, you can get much more active ingredient in the liquid, because essentially they've got a carrier prill, which is like a zeolite or something.
Okay, let me. So what it's like? So you got Soflite and Zeolite, right?
Yeah, like it's like a little clay mineral kind of.
Right. So what they do now, I may not understand this correctly, so tell me. But I'm pretty sure what they do is they have essentially a little mineral,
Yep.
which is what they would call the prill. It's a little thing you can touch, pick
Yep.
up, which is like a sponge.
Yep.
And then they put what is essentially their liquid,
Spray it on.
right?
Yep.
And so then the liquid thing is absorbed by
Yep. Or
That-
it holds it, kind of thing.
and so then when you spread it out, you spread it out with what's something that's solid.
Yep.
But what you're really spreading is not really the same thing. It's just absorbed the product.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's dried liquid wetting agent or anything like that. It is liquid wetting agent, essentially in tiny, tiny little
Yeah,
sponges.
yeah. So we have a granular wetting agent, and I can't remember the amount of active, but like, let's just pick Acelepryn. It's 2 grams per kilo of active ingredient.
Yep.
And then the Acelepryn, like commercial grade, like liquid stuff, is 200 grams per liter active ingredient.
Yep.
And so, like, if you were to look at how much, like, you need
You've
to put
got to
on
spread.
2 kilos of granular
Yeah.
versus 15 mils of
Yeah.
liquid per 100 square meters.
I've got a friend up north I'm
Yep.
just thinking of who really loves his granule stuff.
Yeah.
Right, because of how quick it is to apply.
It's safer. Like, and the other thing, like, this is
Is-
more protection products point of view. It's got that applicator safety issue, especially for a home lawn contractor.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the ease of handling. You're not having to mix it or carry an knapsack or whatever. It's just tip it in, weigh it.
I always think with
spread it.
Acelepryn, you can over apply it. You're wasting product, but it's not. There's not. If you were to go to such a low when you have so much product in such a small amount of liquid,
It becomes risky, basically.
well, it's like a little drop extra on a small 30 square meter lawn. It's like double the application rate, right?
Yeah.
So it's easier on a granule to have it be less, or it's more bulky,
Yeah.
but it's harder to over apply, and especially with granules. So people, if you're applying granule, go get an expensive $400 plus granule spreader, right? So that you can have lots of options for how to open it, and then you test it on your own lawn, because the Acelepryn is tiny little things, and same with wetting agent, they flow out way quicker than other fertilizers.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is a sidetrack thing, but we know the numbers of the fertilizers we use.
Yeah.
So some are number 4 on our spreader, some are 8, some are 12.
This is weird. I've got, like, probably the most expensive pedestrian spreader you can get. We sell them. They're like stainless steel frames and all this stuff. But I still spread. Like, I used to do lawns and stuff on the side and whatever back in the day. I still use a Handy Green. It's actually that easy.
This little
Yeah.
windy up thing.
Lawns aren't that big anymore. You can easily put the hopper on a set of kitchen scales and tip the fert in and go, yep, there's 2 kilos. Go do that 100 square meters. Come back.
I wonder if I've got the thing. I don't have it here, actually.
If you're doing those kinds of runs, makes so much sense, and you can work out all the ferts and the granulars and stuff you use for that type of spreader, and it's so maneuverable.
Well, what I do when I'm out in the road, right? Because
Yep.
we have scales, but the scales are for herbicides,
Yep.
right? So what we actually do is I weighed them up. Most fertilizers, not for wetting agents, they're too light. They're Celebrant too light.
Yep.
Most fertilizers, it's actually about a litre is about a kilo. It's very close.
Yeah, pretty close. That's you're talking about bulk density now, and
Right.
that's that you can actually look that up on the SDS of the product.
So what I actually do,
Yep.
right, is for the products that we use, I just get if you go to, you can get this at Bunnings, you can get this at any sort of agricultural shop. They'll have 2 litre measuring jugs for herbicides,
Yep.
right? And I just use it as a scoop out of the
Yeah,
bag.
yeah, it's perfect.
Right? Or you can even get 5 litre ones, but it's probably too big for you to take anywhere.
Yep.
And you don't have to be on the home lawn, right? Because you're talking about 200 grams difference, like between, let's say, a 10 kilo application, right? Or 10 kilo, you probably just use the whole bag. But let's say you're doing a 6 kilo application, 200 grams here or there, because it's not a perfect way of measuring, is not going to make a world of difference for a 100 square meter lawn, right?
Hot tip though, like if you've developed a fert program, right, or you're putting your granular celebrins and things out, and you know the customers' lawns that you're doing the next day or they're scheduled in, you can easily have like 5 or 10 buckets,
Just go for it.
weigh them out the night before,
Yep.
cruise in and go, that bucket, that lawn, that bucket. You just have lawn 1 through to 10 or 1 through to 10 labelled on them, and you just turn up and you do it. And it's
Yep.
it's the program you've written that suits your region, suits the kinds of grass types you're going, and it's all scheduled in, ready to roll.
So here's what I'm doing. I want to tell you what I'm doing for my clients.
Yep.
And then I want to tell you what I'm doing for my lawn here.
Yep.
Okay. What we do for our clients is something around the lines of slower release, or controlled release, I should say,
Yep.
over the growing season.
Yep.
And we will hit it every now and then with a little bit of liquid iron. Because a lot of the products that we're using, the iron isn't. Now, you might have a product, because I'm not aware of everything. A lot of our iron stuff isn't slow release.
Yep.
And I love the iron colour,
Yeah.
right? It's just a unique thing. But we would say 90% of our fertiliser over the growing season is granule.
Yep.
Then when we get to about May, we just do liquids.
Yep.
And we do usually 1 application a month.
Yep.
And that is enough, because what we have found is you can get results from granule, but it just seems that a lot of it is not actually, it just isn't as effective
Yeah.
as what it is in the growing season. And so we're using both of them. And then on some of our higher end clients, we're doing more liquid stuff and we lower our granule rate.
Yep.
And that's more due to the evenness of the colour.
Yep.
So if someone's on a basic package with us, right, they will get almost all granule, a couple of liquids over winter.
Yep.
The higher end, the more liquids we're doing, it costs more, but it's just for the evenness all
Yep.
the way to the edges,
Yep.
as even as possible.
The other thing too is probably the reason you get more response in winter is you can deliver a big hit of N and the right format of N. So it could be nitrate based, could be straight urea based or whatever. But so like the plant can take that in more readily than having to convert in the soil over time. So like that response, it's generally like the concept behind liquid feeding, and people go, oh, you should feed in winter. It's born out of what response you get from using liquids in winter, more so than the fact that it works more than granular.
So
It's just
I've heard, and this is from people in America, people over here,
Yeah.
that the microbes that work and turning the nitrogen into something that's
temperature based.
accessible for, they go to sleep essentially.
Yep.
They're not as active in
Yep.
colder climates, right?
Yep.
And that's why the granules fertilizers don't work as much.
Yeah.
Is that just because of that type of nitrogen, So if we were to use like a sulfate of ammonia or
It's
something
also
like that,
the conversion process. So like,
well, let's keep it as simple
Yeah,
as possible. Is there a type of fertilizer that is better over winter where you don't get that reduction? Right?
oh no, well you're going to get the reduction
But you're
because
always gonna get
the
a
growth
reduction.
is less. So the plant's not photosynthesizing as quickly, or it's gone dormant to a point. And so you still only need to deliver small amounts, and so liquid makes more sense because you can deliver small amounts more easily. So like,
yeah.
and you can get response. But also the other big reason why I would put liquids in my program, you've said it yourself, but you use it for iron. Things like iron in a granular fert might be, let's say it's 2% iron in that granular fert. It's generally iron sulfate. And in a lot of soils, it can be buffered within 24 hours, which means it won't work anyway. You know, like if your turf's a bit wet and you put it on, or it's dewy and you put it on, the iron might stay in the leaf for a little bit, and then you irrigate it all in, it goes in the soil, and then it doesn't work. So like putting on liquid iron sulfate, you get a better coating over the surface. You can put the exact amount on you want at point in time, or you can up it to get response. Because really, iron, oftentimes when you apply it, the plant is in maximum of its iron. The plant only needs a really small amount of iron. And generally, the response you see and the response we see from iron is actually a staining response. And that, like when you over apply iron, it goes black.
Yeah, done that plenty of times.
And,
On my own lawn,
and you know when you initially apply iron, it almost looks like you've like grated steel over the top of it. You know, like it's really like you are essentially staining the outside of the plant.
Well, what I've done here, because I want your critique on both of these things that I'm doing, right? Now, here, I don't do a program, right?
Yep.
I just go off feel.
Yeah.
And I now very rarely use granule. The reason is Kaiku gets thatchy so quick.
Yep.
Right? And Kaiku, at least here where I am, you don't need a whole lot to have a nice colour. All I care about is colour.
Yeah.
Right? It has to be resilient enough to handle my dog, which you've met. And you can see how energetic she is.
Yeah.
Right? So I just go off feel. Now, sometimes I think that's partly why I got a fungal disease, right? Because I probably am a little bit behind on some of my apps, right? But the colour is fine.
Yeah.
Right? The colour of the lawn is totally fine. And I try and fertilise as little as possible. And with my Kaiku, I'm just trying to put iron on, which is several times I've gone, it needs more colour, and I put more iron on, and I'm like, I've just made it black. It needed nitrogen. Like I've maxed out how much color I can get out of the iron.
Yeah, and I think that's.
But I'm trying to do so something that you know, like it's so obvious to you that they don't know. Listen, or some people won't know is iron gets green without growth or without much growth.
Kinda, yeah, and so does things like manganese.
Yeah.
Magnesium.
Yeah.
They're all assisting like chlorophyll production.
Whereas nitrogen will get the growth, and what makes the lawn thatchy is when you put down too much nitrogen. We talked about this with a slow release. Yeah. If you just put your controlled release, I should stop saying slow. You put your control release out at double the application rate. Yeah. Way too much nitrogen, it just gets thatchy. Yeah. And Kaiku, people hate Kaiku because of how much it grows. Yeah. So you can manage that, and I don't use PGR because of my dog. You can manage that through like just less nitrogen. Yeah. So that's why I don't really use granule anymore. Is there stuff that you're looking at that you're going, I would do it differently? Or you would change something with how I'm doing, either for the client side of things?
Yeah, I probably would.
What would you change?
I would still use granular fert, and I'd hit like I know that Kaiku, like really healthy Kaiku, is probably about 200 units of N. Like really healthy, good looking Kaiku, and that's probably if you reno hard once a year.
Which is less than you're saying for...
Oh, far less than Cooch.
Yeah.
And far less than Rye, as an example.
Well, I guess that's sort of what I've naturally learnt just through...
Yeah, you would have just seen it from seeing it.
I don't need to put that nitrogen on to get the colour.
Yeah.
It's usually fine.
Yeah.
Right?
But then you know if your dog goes out and does a wee on it and you see response, then you know it can physically take it.
Yes.
And I admittedly saw that today at a quite renowned facility. Not going to mention where. But they were like...
It wasn't my yard?
They were... this was the thing. They were complaining about the density and struggling to get the field up with wear. And they were talking about certain fertilizers. And then I was like... and it was kind of like it's a semi-public space, and so
Yeah.
I could see in the distance a dog wee mark, and then we walked over to it because I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, can we go over here for a sec?" Pointing out the dog wee mark, and I'm like, "Oh, this just shows that you could probably feed another like 100 to 200 units or kilos of elemental nitrogen on this
That's really
field."
interesting because dogweed's got urea.
Yeah, it's ureic acid, like urea.
Nitrogen.
Yeah, it's
So
nitrogen.
that's why you get green spots.
So a
when
really
you-
easy
dogs-
way to tell if you're not feeding enough is
take your
if you
dog
get-
outside, force it to
Yeah, yeah.
piss.
Well-
That's it, dog. Come on.
Yeah, well, if you
Squeeze
see
it hard.
in your lawn there's like these really nice dark green rings, but it's not killing it, then the rest of your lawn is underfed. But if the dog is weeing on it, and I saw at another facility, also
Right.
public, the dog was weeing and it was burning the lawn, so oversupply of
Nice.
urea. But the surrounding turf was the same colour as the rest of the oval. So I'm like, they're feeding with the right amount of nitrogen.
Right.
Just telltale signs that you look for. You almost have to be a detective because you can't ask them all the questions. And so what I would do with your program is, okay, you like the extent of liquids and the timing that you do to them. So you
So
look
this is
at...
for my house?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for my house.
And
yeah.
so you look at what one liquid application's worth. So it might be, let's say it's 20% nitrogen again, and you're going at the equivalence of 20 litres a hectare, which is 200 mils per 100 square metres of
That's about what I apply.
of liquid,
Yep.
and it's 20% N. So really only 40 grams, but that's not the truth because they have a different what's called bulk density, and you can work this all out because liquid fertilizer is actually heavier than it is in volume. So it might have a bulk density of 1.2 or something, which means that for every 1 litre, it weighs 1.2 kilograms.
Okay.
And
Yes,
so
yes, yes.
for instead of being actually 40 grams of nitrogen, it's actually kind of 50 grams.
It's 48. If
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
20%
or
extra,
you know what I mean. So essentially, you go, okay, 48 grams monthly from May. So you go May, 48 grams, June, July, August, September. You put 250 grams of nitrogen on. Your end target is, we know it's two kilos. So
Yeah.
you subtract the 250 grams off your 2 kilos. Guess what? You still got 1750 you can dispose of. But you might want to do more liquid apps or whatever. And so you
Right.
sub them in, but you're always underfeed. So you always feed with roughly the right amount.
Yeah.
And your timing is always based on how the turf's growing. But then if things happen, like you see a disease or something happens, you can pretty much ascertain what's caused it. Because you've got historical evidence or evidence there of everything that you've done. And you might see that one of those things you've changed. So, you might have, for some reason...
I don't write anything down.
I know, but the
I just look at it and go,
Yeah.
it feels to me like this needs some nitrogen.
Yeah, yeah.
And I put it out,
Yeah.
and it's like, I
And
was wrong. Nothing
and
happened,
this is
or
the
I was
thing,
right. It
what I
worked.
do with programs is like, and as like a lawn contractor, as an example, like programs are what you need to do to then sell that service to the customer, and you need something like on paper to go, I'm going to do 4 apps of this and 3 apps of that, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
But I still tell all of my customers that programs are a guide. So like things will change. You got to be adaptive
Yeah,
with the changes and things.
We do. So when we go to the clients, you know how I said we use a little bit of iron.
yeah,
We don't book that in,
yeah,
right? But we know we can apply iron after a mow,
yeah,
right? And we don't have problems with burn or anything like that.
yeah,
And so you just have it in the car all the time. You have a sprayer available, and you
Yeah.
walk up to a client's house, and you're like, it's on a package. We take care of everything. If we notice that there's something that needs treating, like we need to do fungicide or whatever, we just do it. So
Yeah.
you would notice that throughout the year, we might do a little bit extra of this
Yeah.
or that. So really what you're saying is, it sounds like use a really slow release, like the 4 or 5 month release at a lower rate,
yeah,
and then use my field to top up
yeah.
with like application
Yeah,
of liquid fertilizer.
because on the day that you get home from work and you cannot get to that customer's lawn, is the day that it misses that liquid ab, is the day that customer 2 days later is calling you going, why does my lawn look like it's gone backwards? Whereas if you've got at least the granular nutrition sitting in the ground there, delivering a small amount of nutrition every single day for the state of longevity,
Yep.
then you've kind of got flexibility and peace of mind of when you're actually going to turn up in that month and
Yeah.
apply that application.
Yeah, I totally get what
And
you mean.
so it gives you, and the reason I then put such a I put so many eggs in that basket is it gives the turf manager or the home lawn contractor or that person peace of mind that nutrition is delivering on the day.
Right.
And you could get rain or you can't be asked, basically.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do it because the nutrition's there. I feel like liquids, you're almost subscription-based applications.
Well, I just think with the liquids, it's the other thing that we do, which has got nothing to do with turf. It's got everything to do with just people. We just like trying things.
Oh, yeah.
We like trying new things.
Yeah, yeah.
And there'll be this product, I haven't tried that before, it's slightly different. It's got a little bit of this, got a little bit of that.
I have a theory, right? So
All right.
I've got a few theories, but I have this theory, right? Do you know why RTUs, like, in the big green shed work so well?
What's RTU? It's
Like ready
R2
to
diesel.
use, like hose-on packs.
Oh, yeah,
Do
yeah.
you know why they work?
Ready to use. Why?
I just feel like it plays into human psyche.
Because you've done something.
It feels like you've achieved something when really, like, in reality, like, the percentage that you put on and the water rate that you go at, you've achieved
You've
little
washed everything
to
off the
naught.
land.
And I've got trials that show you that you've achieved little to naught.
Right.
And so that concept is a license to print money. You know, like that subscription-based concept. We all subscribe to streaming services. You're all subscribing to this podcast. No, but like...
No one's paying me money to subscribe yet. People, maybe we should do that.
Yeah, I'll send you an RTU.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
No, but like, think about it. Like, so I feel like, while good, I feel like it's a bad thing to get someone on that train because it's not a lot of, like, it's a lot of input for not a whole lot of sweet nothing.
Right.
Yeah. And you just look at it from a math point of view. You can't deliver the volumes. Like, I've looked at it.
Which is with the
me.
hose on things. Well, I mean,
Yeah. But also...
I find
with,
with the
like,
hose on things,
yeah.
you just cannot get an accurate, even distribution.
Yeah.
Because you're just going off feel. I mean, unless
Yeah.
you were like to walk over your lawn in a pattern.
Yeah.
But if you're that methodical about your application, you're probably not buying a hose on thing.
The other theory I have, and he's probably in the previous podcast to this, but I feel like a lot of people that work in lawns have beards. And it's almost like...
Well, BJ Walls, we just released, massive beard.
Yep.
Travis Savage, third or fourth episode, massive
beard. Len, big beard.
That's true.
Beard.
Poor excuse for a beard.
Is it...
Slightly hairy is what I would call
This
me.
is my theory, right? So, like, these people are looking after these things all day that grow and do these things, and then they get to, like, their personal hygiene, and they're just like, I can't be...
stuff.
Absolutely.
That's exactly why I have a
So
beard.
that's part of my theory. But then there's, like, that paradigm where it becomes so good. So you set the program, and it becomes so good that now you're on the train of... oh shit, I better look after this thing.
Yes.
You know? And it's the same with lawns. Lawns are so much like beards.
I always thought you were going to go crack cocaine there.
But that's
It's more like, we'll give you this freebie, then you get
so
hooked.
they're my two theories. I don't really have many theories, but they're my two theories.
There you go. Well, mate, look, we're going for time. We're probably close to 2 hours here. Actually, I can't see.
Yeah.
I've got one more question for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about fertilizers. Let's recap this, right?
Yeah.
You can use LED lights, but it's probably not a great idea. I don't know why we started with that,
A
because
lot
it's
of work.
such a niche thing.
Oh, we could have talked about that for like, I don't know, probably like
Hours.
6 podcasts or something.
I think ICL stuff, we haven't even talked about your specific products,
Yeah.
but the general concept, and guys, check them
People
out.
probably don't even know what I do.
Well, they worked out that you do something with a guy at Leicester.
yeah.
You had a chat with somebody today who probably should have known a little bit more than what they were doing because there's some dog pee marks. No, so we summarised everything. We've got, you can do granule fertiliser. Make sure you know how much nitrogen is going out. Lenny talked about that on his podcast as well.
Yeah.
And the more expensive fertilisers end up being cheaper from a client's perspective because of reduced application rates.
Yeah.
It's a really good way to up your game.
But they deliver better quality turf.
Right.
Yep.
We've talked about liquids. We've talked
Yep.
about the difference between wetting agents, granule, liquid. Okay, one more thing. Can we do this in 5 minutes? Because I've got to go out to dinner.
Yeah. We can do it in 5 minutes.
We got NPK, we got micronutrients.
Yep.
Okay. Very briefly, what do NPK do? What do all these micronutrients? We touched on iron, manganese and stuff. My rule of thumb, and this is basically the last thing I can say in this podcast, is if you look at the back of a fertilizer package, In general, the more things listed on there, the better the fertilizer is. The more complete it is. In general, the less things listed on there, the more simple it is. And you usually find that the ones with more are a bit more expensive. They've got more stuff going on.
Yeah.
In general, not 100% of the time, because sometimes you do just want, like we said, you just want to chuck some iron out or some urea out.
So you want me to go through like NPK?
So from a very basic level,
Yep.
what is nitrogen doing? We talked about, I think people know that's helping the plant grow. It's making it grow.
Yeah. It's basically producing biomass in all instances, like leaves, roots, stems. So it's the number one like nutritional thing that if you're not doing that and you're over here looking at RTU seaweeds and stuff,
Hose on bottles.
then you're not in the right spot. Like that's number one. Like if
Nitrogen
we look
is
at it
your
from
most
priority,
important thing to
number
get
one,
down.
and then K,
What's K mean?
potassium.
That annoys me.
So yeah,
Why do they have something that starts with P?
potassium.
Call it something with a K. I always get it mixed up with phosphorus. So K is potassium. What does K do?
Like cell wall strength. It's also helps with not so much early establishment, but root development. Probably in the simplest terms.
So in the cell wall strength, what benefit does that have to your average Joe?
It influences things like how hard or how difficult it is for things like diseases to get into the plant. It also helps with
Does it help with
how like upright the turf is. So like when you cut it, you get like a nice cleanness of cut. Like
so with my dog,
turf
right?
health, basically.
Or schools, trampling and stuff like that. Is that going to help? Cell wall strength literally going to help with it being resilient to trampling?
Yeah. Disease, wear, drought. Basically all the stresses that we put on.
So if you
grasses.
put on a full nitrogen, none of this K, lots of growth, but it's sort of floppy weed.
You'll get
pathetic growth.
heaps of weeds, heaps of disease. You'll get just so many issues.
Which is why putting urea down in April
Yep.
on a high application
Not-
rate like I did
Yeah,
several years ago,
Yep.
not a good idea. So
Yep.
the K is there, and then what about P?
P, probably like third, if not fourth, biggest requirement.
What? Well, tell me this first.
Probably third would be calcium.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let's talk about P
and
first.
probably more so in Australia, in an Australian setting, due to our issues with water quality. But anyways, P, probably early root development.
Yep. So if you put down a brand new lawn or you're planting a new plant,
can be notoriously hard to deliver because a lot of the sources that we use deliver really quick. So, but what you'll find is if you can balance the amount of just MP and K, just focus on those three. So for every 1 unit of N, you put 0.6 of K and 0.1, so 10% is P. So for 1 kilo, 600 grams, 100 grams, you're doing really well.
Right.
Like that'll deliver most of what the turf needs.
do you have a product that's in that range that you can say right now? Because those numbers are probably too nerdy for most people listening.
That ratio, yeah. Yep.
What's the product name?
Oh, it's called ProTurf MPK.
ProTurf MBK. Okay.
Yeah. It's 15, 2.2, 12.4.
Keep it nice and simple. So ICL, ProTurf, MPK.
Yeah.
All right. So we got that N, we got our P, we got our K.
Yep.
Well, we went KP.
Yep.
What you're saying? Calcium.
Calcium.
Now I haven't heard this. I'm learning something now.
Yeah.
What the heck?
So obviously it's one of the key cations to the plant. It helps with things like, or it helps during the establishment. Yeah, well,
Is that what it's-
no, it helps with establishment. It's also turf health, but in a soil sense, it can also work on buffering the soil in some kind of way. So like if you look at things like lime, which is calcium carbonate,
Yep.
brings your pH up.
Yep.
Things like gypsum, if you've got water quality issues like high salt, high sodium,
Sure.
it can bind to the cation exchange because calcium stronger charged than sodium, which is only a single charge, so that it can.
I'm starting to get lost.
It can basically push.
But it helps with salt. Okay.
Yeah. No, it helps with the profile that the plant grows in, and then probably moving along then to the fifth biggest, sulfur.
Yeah. And you see that a lot now. Sulfate of ammonia.
Yeah.
That's nitrogen and sulfur together, right?
Yeah. So it's like 20, 0, 0, 21 or something sulfur.
And that greens up so quick, quite a bit of thatch too. Because that's
yeah.
That's just instant, right?
It's just. So basically, it dissolves more quickly and readily than just urea.
Yep.
And will probably last about, like, in soil about a week.
Yeah.
And then it'll probably respond for about 3 to 4, and that's it. That's all she wrote. And so it's really hard to deliver nitrogen.
Beautiful colour.
Yeah.
Beautiful colour.
So
I love
that ProTurf NPK, right? So the nitrogen source, it's got controlled release, but also urea. So the urea kicks it, nitrogen hangs around for 3 months. The polyester, sorry. The P is just conventional P, but the potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur is in a crystalline mineral structure that we mine underneath the English Channel, about 3K down, and it's low dissolution. So it's like a slow release version of potassium, calcium, magnesium, sulfur. So all those 6 elements, the top 6 elements that turf need, are in the one bag, and the N and the K, Cal, Mag, and sulfur all deliver over a similar time frame, which means you can just put it on at its stated longevity, which is 2 to 3 months. So if you said 10 weeks is about roughly, then you get about 5 feeds a year.
Mm-hmm.
If you went at, it's 15% N. So if you went at roughly 3 kilos, 5 times, you're going to put
3
out...
kilos per 100 squares.
Yep. 5 times, you're going to put out, there's 15 kilos per 100 squares total.
Over
You're
the
going to
year.
put out 45 units every app. This is just keeping it simple. You do 45 times 5 is 25, 5, 4. So 225 kilos of elemental N.
Which is about what you were saying you needed for Cooch. Well, two.
Yep. And probably just slightly higher. So you could probably slightly drop your rate for Kai.
Yep.
And then the K is going to be whatever it is 12.4. So you times that by your 15 kilos or whatever. That'll tell you what that is. So it's a really good balance, and it's exactly how turf grass feeds, and it's in the ratio. And so so we have products like that in our range where we have like 70 products, but more often than not I direct customers to about
the basic one.
a list of about 10 products because they can do most things.
So despite everything at Macca's, we still buy Big Macs. Is that what you're saying?
That's it. That is basically it.
I think that's a good way to wrap up the podcast, mate. This has been really nerdy.
Yeah.
I like it. So the ProTurf NPK, that is your number one seller. So if we put everything together that we talked about today, that is the product that you would recommend for
It's
most
our
people.
number one product. Well, ProTurf is our number one selling brand range worldwide. All the Premier League grounds use it. Wimbledon use it. Everyone's using it.
Yeah. So, but probably not good for Art Marga down the road, hey, because if it works at Wimbledon, why would you want it?
Why would you want
Why
it?
would you want it? Mate, thanks for being patient with all these,
good.
everything that happens.
Yeah, good. I hope I didn't nerd people out. And if I did, questions?
I think what I like about this podcast is we the whole point is to have people be themselves, and because you will get people, you would have lost some people.
Yeah.
And there's some people would have thought this is the best podcast the world's ever seen, right? And next week, we might have somebody on who is the exact opposite. It's all just fun, laughs and games.
Yeah.
And that's what the industry is like. We're not trying to shape anybody, and there's no right way or wrong way to go about it. But I enjoyed this. I learned some stuff. What you just said about calcium, I never realised how important that was.
Yeah.
Right? But
Yeah.
look, man, I've got to go to dinner at my mum's house.
How good.
My wife is probably like, why are you taking so long? We're having fun, all right? All right, see you in the next podcast, everyone.